Yate Khasilo. You're listening to Politics on the Navajo Nation. I am your host, Cal Nez. I'd like to welcome you. Um, Let me just quickly introduce myself. She Tachin Shiro Tanisani Bashin Arona Kaiden and Shiro. No, what did I say? Not Kaiden Ada Shiro, but I did a Shinala. I guess in a shadow in the Zetlan State or Tosito, this is just south of Shiprock. Uh, and so going to town from my location would be driving through Shiprock. We visited Shiprock. I know nearly every street in Shiprock. So, and got relatives in Shiprock myself, although I'm not a voting member. So I'm quite familiar with that area. Aronle, Farmington, so that's one of my areas. So this is northeastern side of the Navajo Nation, Northern Agency. So, and I want to just do a little bit of house cleaning here. And it's starting to get a little bit out of control. To you listeners, I want to clarify one thing as well as the candidates and the interviewees. I just want to make sure that we all have an understanding. The focus of these podcasts is number one, it's a public service. I'm doing you a favor to provide these candidates to you. And I want to extend my gratitude to the candidates who are coming forward. These are questions that are focused not only just about generalities about the typical standard speaking about why a candidate is running. We've all heard it. We've all heard it. Roads. I want to take care of your health care. I want to take care of the senior center. I have these are typical things that we've already heard. What these questions that I've assembled for every candidate is driving to establish what the character of each candidate is. And these general questions apply to public information that majority of us who are living on the Navajo Nation or off the Navajo Nation, Navajos, we are aware what's going on in Window Rock, what's going on in our chapters. We know that. We know issues. So my expectation is that these delegates need to know basic subjects that have plagued the Navajo Nation for a long time. The things that when I ran for the president of the Navajo Nation back in 2014, these same questions, these same stuff, we were talking about it back then. So these candidates need to be prepared for things that are not only just in their chapter, but also in their agency. And also the rest of the other agencies. Because there's going to be stuff coming out of Western Agency, Central. And they're going to be voting on that. Our expectation is for you to know basic public information, the structures of certain parts of the Navajo Nation. And not only that, is that you're going to be going to state level government to government relationships. You're going to be probably going to Washington. representing the Navajo Nation. How are you going to conduct yourself in front of us, senators and congressional? Because these are headhunters, narcissistic people. How are you going to represent us? And that's what I'm seeing. That's what I'm looking for. And not only that, is your ability to solve issues. I'll give you topics, hypotheticals, metaphorical, for you to navigate how you're going to resolve issues. So to you, the listeners out there, this podcast, I could ask the candidate, the world is flat. What's your opinion on it? Obviously, anybody could. What I'm looking for is their reasoning. If I make a mistake, I expect the candidate to correct and set records straight. Also, to give me a reason why the world is not flat. Those are based on credibility, integrity, and character. So I want everybody to understand that. This is a question that have pretty much covered all the basics of social ills that we all know about. So as we go into this thing, to the candidate, to our guests, I would like for you to really understand that you're going to be wearing multiple hats as if you should be elected to the Navajo Nation Council. You're going to be wearing your Shiprock hat. And then you're going to have another brim over here. You're also going to be wearing it's going to have knobby right here. And you're going to have another brim with your standing committee. And then you're going to have another brim over here that's going to have another committee, or even being a council representative to each of these Navajo Nation enterprise. So you're going to be wearing multiple hats. So when you go Shiprock, you're going to go to knobby and you'll just rotate your hat depending on who you are, but it's still sitting on your hat, on your head. So how are you going to navigate through these stuff? So that's the purpose of the show. I'm not trying to go in there and, I see other social media influencers, all they do is complain. What I'm looking for is that collectively, you, the people out there who are going to vote these people in, together, all of us, from the president to the councils, whichever. One of the interviews that I did, one person said, it's got to be a collective effort. So which one of these are we going to elect into office? So that's what I want to say today. I want to clear that up and have a clear understanding of that. I think that about covers up. So I can take a deep breath. So we'll go on to our interview now. Okay. I have invited, and I want to thank her for coming on. Her name is DEMETRIA SIMMS, and I deeply apologize because that's why I don't like autospeller on our little gadgets. I misspelled her name, and so she called me up and so I corrected that, and her name is DEMETRIA SIMMS, and she's a 2026 Navajo Nation Council candidate for the Shiprock chapter. Ako siya kare ko ni siya dahon zito le.
Okay. Thank you for having me, Cal. I appreciate it. The conversations that we've had to go ahead and get this interview going. And I appreciate the platform. And yes, I agree that a lot of people need to understand what a delegate would be doing for the Navajo Nation at the highest level of government in Window Rock, as well as the United States going to Washington, even at the Capitol level, whether it be at, I mean, within the Navajo Nation, we cover 4 states. We reach into Arizona, New Mexico, Utah, as well as some Colorado. So we do need to have that ability to represent the Navajo Nation at those levels. Let me go ahead and give my introduction now. She'e DEMETRIA SIMMS Yunashia. Tohe glini nashla, do ma edish gijini bashishchin, tkachini edish chato, tatnizatni edish nale. And I come from Shiprock and born and raised there. I graduated from there. And surprisingly, 2 days after graduation, I enlisted into the military, the U.S. Army. I have been honorably discharged. I served almost my entire time at Fort Campbell, Kentucky, 101st Airborne Division. And only one of those years I spent at Fort Hood while we converted the Apache helicopters to longbows. So 1 year I was in Fort Hood. But other than that, after my time, I came home and stayed for a little bit, but I went back out to DC. I lived in DC for a little bit on my own. And I have been watching everything concerning my community in Shiprock. I have done a lot. I have, when I came back, I went to SIPI, and I'm alumni from SIPI. I graduated with my AA in liberal arts. Then from that, I got a full ride scholarship to New Mexico State, Highlands, New Mexico Highlands University. And I got my BSW, which is a Bachelor's of Social Work. And I didn't continue because I went to school that entire time I started my degree. I went, and my daughter was very young, and she said, Mom, can you take a break? And I've taken a break. So my break's been very long. I should continue on to my master's, but I currently have my BSW in social work. So I'm very familiar with a lot of the things that, present the issues within the Navajo Nation. And while I was at SIPI, I also did some things there. I became part of AHEC, which is American Indian Higher Education Consortium out of Washington, D.C. I was the Southwest representative as well as the vice president of that. I was also the president of the National Honor Society at SIPI. And in that time, I went to DC and advocated on behalf of the tribal colleges. So I've already been at that level, speaking to senators and representatives on behalf of the Navajo Nation, requesting funding, requesting assistance for higher education. And we also touched on other topics. We went up there as an entire group with all of the sister and brother colleges of the Native communities within the United States. So it was very informative of me, educational for me also to learn how to advocate at those levels. So that's pretty much me in a nutshell. After I came back and did all of that, I've been a social services director for 2 nursing homes in Albuquerque, and I've come home. I've also worked for CYFD at the New Mexico level for New Mexico. So I'm very familiar with children as well as geriatrics, all the issues that encompass that demographic. So walking back into the Navajo Nation, I decided to help my community again, and I went back into the veterans community. I'm currently the Shiprock commander, and I'm also the Northern Navajo Veterans Organization secretary. Last year, I was the commander. I ran the entire program by myself. I had another commander with me, but he wasn't a commander at the time. So it was basically just me. And after that, I went on to become the veteran liaison for under Bu Nygren. He hired me on, and I lasted a year, and I was let go. So that was a very interesting role because I represented 110 chapters, and I went to a lot of meetings. I went to the HES meetings, the NABI meetings. I go to agency veterans organization meetings as well as chapter veterans organization meetings as well. So that's my current role right now, is dealing completely with veterans. I've also sat on the Navajo Nation Veterans Advisory Council for the 1 year that I was commander of Northern Agency.
Okay. So why are you running for Navajo Nation Council for Shiprock? Give me your platform.
My platform is, I'm running because I have been sitting on the sidelines watching and having all these interactions with the council delegates. I have the understanding that they have a lot of power and they have a lot of ability to make change when it comes to laws, when it comes to legislations, when it comes to bettering, any community. So for my platform within Shiprock, I'm focused on the elderly, the youth, the roads, the crime, I guess you would say, because when I drive through Shiprock, you see a lot of graffiti, and we need to reboost or revitalize the businesses and the income of Shiprock. There's so many businesses that have been shut down. So my platform would ultimately be based on the people of Shiprock, as well as what sustains them and what keeps everyday life flowing within the town of Shiprock. At one point in time, I remember growing up, Shiprock was safe. You could walk, anywhere, any time of day, and you were safe. Now you have to be careful because a lot of things happen even in broad daylight, and you really have to be cautious of your own surroundings within Shiprock now. A lot of things have changed, as they should with time, but at the same time, we should all still be working together to maintain safety and community and everyday life. So my platform would basically be solely on the people. I know there's a lot of other avenues. I mean, it's not just the people, it's what does Shiprock produce? We have farmers, we have veterans, we have elderly, we have the amazing youth that go on to be so much more. I mean, look at Shiaj. He's Dallas Cowboy now. So those are the things that we want to encompass and bring back to, like they say, they say Hojon, and we need to do that. We need to come together as a community and maintain that Hojon.
So let me just recap. Your platform is about, I'm not sure if I understood it, but you brought up the council has too much power. And then you talked about you're going to address elderly issues, youth, roads, crime, business / people of Shiprock, safety, and working together and to enhance Hojon and Keh. Am I correct on that?
Yes.
Okay. So the first question, let me just preface this for you. So please understand that from here, should you get elected, you are going to be a Shiprock Council delegate. You're going to go and leave the chapter, and have meetings in Window Rock. On the council floor, you will now be employed for the rest of the Navajo people. Every Navajo. There's going to be laws, legislations, what have you, are going to be coming through before you. And you outline what are the issues in Shiprock. I'm sure some of these issues are also existing in other communities. So you're also going to be assigned to NABI, which I already talked about. You're going to be on the standing committee. So that's where these questions are now going to come in. Right now in Window Rock, we have a problem. We have a serious problem. And you kind of alluded to it. What do you think is the biggest problem, and what would you do should you be elected as Navajo Nation Council to resolve the biggest problem that's going on right now?
The biggest issue that I see that happened is the 3-branch government. And it is not working. The 3-branch government, when it was implemented, they clearly had faith and hope that this would take off, but we're watching it now. We're watching lawsuits. We're watching people not showing up to meetings, and it's not right across the board. It's everyone that gets into their position, whether it be council, whether it be president of the Navajo Nation, they need to abide with the laws that are already written and not try to bypass them, because ultimately they need to uphold the positions they were elected for. And I see that as a huge issue, having gone to council many times and seeing that our current president won't even attend. And me having worked for him, I get where they're coming from, but at the same time, when you get into these positions, you have to maintain the reason why you hold a title, regardless if people like you or not. It's a public service position. Your life becomes public. Everything about you either walk the line, or in another sense, you either talk the talk and you walk the walk. So for a lot of these positions, going back to the government, I see everyone's frustration of not getting along, but the way that I envisioned it, because at one point in time, correct me if I'm wrong, we followed or mirrored the big government, which is how we came to be. Before that, it wasn't so. So now we have the vice president, the president, and all these different areas, just like we do. And, we basically mirror Washington and a smaller government here now. And it's worked, but in some senses it hasn't worked. And that's concerning overall, because regardless if people like you or not, you need to do the job. You need to work. You need to get past, everyone's negativity and keep your personal bias out and ultimately just be a leader.
Okay, so you did say there's a problem with the federal government. You identified most of all the problems that I think all of us know, all of us out here.
Mm-hmm.
The question is that, what would you do to change that? What specifically would you address to bring that balance in?
I would address, because I don't see the 3-branch government going away anytime soon. I really don't see it, but it can. I mean, how they put it into play, it can be undone. So if I were to become council delegate, I would really truly hold everyone to the position that they hold. And there needs to be consequences or, a way out if they choose not to follow the guidelines or not to follow the positional responsibility duties of that position. If they're not willing to follow it, we need to have something in place to either remove them, to either the people. This is the biggest thing that I've been watching, is just how is it that the voice of the Navajo people is not being heard? How is it people are not being held accountable at the highest level of government? It's appalling. And when you're looking at the national news, people up there are getting, they're getting in trouble. They're getting removed. Why is it our small government, since we mirrored them, why are we not following the same process?
Right. I understand all the issues. The rest of us understand that as well. My question still, how are you going to resolve that? And which title would you change and address to resolve these issues?
What title would I change and how would I, goodness. I can only continually stress that these positions at the highest level need to follow what, they're supposed to be doing. And regardless of, as far as changing it, I would want to implement laws that hold them accountable. As far as changing it, I would want to possibly bring in people that can assist in how to run our government better.
Are you familiar with Title II?
Yes.
Okay. Can you share with us what that is?
Title II is basically, we basically just did another, we did our recent legislation that we incorporated veterans into Title II to be recognized at the chapter level. And Title II is, to me, Title II is how basically our governments run and how they're supposed to be run. But I know there's other titles out there, just like Title 26 runs the chapters. But Title II, I believe, is what runs our government.
Okay. So having said that, with Title II, let's move to, well, right now, we all know that there's a conflict that's been happening since the inception of the three-branch government. Are you familiar with the Office of Government Development?
Office of Government Development. I know it's there in Window Rock, but I haven't seen them really. I'm not really familiar with what they do, because anytime anyone tries to report anything, it basically doesn't go anywhere. Whether it's to ethics and rules, whether it's, to anything. Like, if there's issues at any level of the government, it just seems to you put these reports in, they tell you where to put them into, and nothing seems to come from it. That's what I see. And if there is an office of the government, then where are they and what have they been doing?
Yeah. Do you live on the Navajo Nation?
No, I don't. Currently, I do not.
Okay. So you said you came back to Shiprock, so that's why I was asking. So while you were in the office for 1 year, um, let's kind of move on to the next subject, and I'll kind of interlace those two together with the conflict between executive branch and the legislative branch. And I'll bring in, it sounds to me like you're a veteran.
Yes, I am.
So I'll bring in the veteran. Okay. The truth is this, there's two different government, and we have the Navajo people. The Navajo people say that we're sovereign. The Navajo government says we're sovereign. And then the United States, of course, is sovereign, and we are sitting within the Navajo Nation. Navajo Nation is sitting within the Navajo Nation government. The reason why I really need to explain this is because most of the conflicts and wars that are military, they have been conflicts that the United States government either has been involved, joined, what have you. And I don't know if I can say declared, but in other words, our veterans, they serve in our current active military in every branch are serving under the United States government. So having said that, should you be elected as a Navajo Nation Council delegate member from Shiprock, what is your position on how and who is ultimately responsible for our veterans? Because the United States didn't declare war. I mean, the Navajo Nation didn't declare war on anybody. It was the United States government. So who should ultimately care for the veterans?
I feel that the United States government should take care of the veterans because they served underneath the United States government.
But that's not happening.
When you say they're not helping where are they not helping them? That's what I'm trying to understand, because I as a veteran, I get a lot of assistance from the US government through the VA. So I get that taken care of, but it is a process. It is a very long process. Once you get in there, you have to go through a lot of the appointments, a lot of the evaluations to get the services from the US government. But majority of the time, it's up to the veteran to go and get their services. And go ahead.
You don't think there's a problem with veterans?
I know there's a problem with veterans.
Can you tell us about that?
Okay. Veterans at the Navajo Nation level or veterans at the U.S. level?
Across the board. Of course, okay. The United States. I mean, no. Of course, the Navajo Nation.
Okay.
That's all this is in reference to, is the veterans.
Yeah.
Because let me interject another thing. I haven't. You're the only veterans that I know of that says, "Hey, I'm totally satisfied with the service I get." The other veterans, I've never heard one ever say that, because they live in remote.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them don't have any means of getting even to the chapter house. There's a problem.
Yep.
And most of these, because they can't get anywhere, I'm not understanding your position.
Okay, so I didn't mean to say that I'm completely happy with, how the government gives me, the services that I do get from them. But there it could be better and it should be more. I agree
How
with that.
could it be better?
It could be better with them. This is kind of difficult because there's a duality simply because, okay, for instance, let me use the VA attempting to come onto the reservation to bring them services. And they show up, they set up shop. The veterans don't show up. They don't partake of the mobile unit to see a doctor. They don't partake of, the free ride services to their appointments. I mean, they are implementing what they can. And it's just, I don't know. It's difficult. I mean, even getting my own veterans to understand that, we need them to apply for these services. We need for them to, really be active with getting their benefits, in a sense that, I mean, they have these within the Navajo Nation. We have 5 agencies, and the Navajo Nation created the Navajo Nation Veterans Administration in NVA, which falls underneath the executive branch. And they have an executive director, they have a deputy director, they have all of this money that comes into in NVA. And the director makes a budget, and then the director decides where this money goes and how it assists the veterans of the Navajo Nation. It's so many different programs, and each agency is different and we also have a trust fund. We're part of a trust fund. Somebody a long time ago enacted into a trust fund for the veterans. And of that money, we fall in with, I believe, 5 other entities. I believe it's children, elderly, and some others. But we partake of that trust fund, which is what you guys hear about when we say go and apply for your veteran trust fund, which happens every October and every January, every quarter. And veterans utilize this funding to assist them with daily life. It's not a paycheck. We encourage them not to rely on it because a lot of things keep changing within NVA to receive these funds. There
Okay.
could be.
Well, it's just, please understand, because you're going to be sitting at one of the most powerful seats on the Navajo Nation in the largest Native American tribe. You're going to be one of the most powerful member of the Navajo Nation Council. You're going to be making changes. I'm looking for that because you spent 1 year with the Office of the President addressing these issues. 1 year might not appear long enough, but within that time frame, you could have seen it from the executive side, and you also see it from the chapter side. So the question is this: I'm getting confused when you say there is some that the veterans need to know. I think the veterans already know how to get these things. The question is the service to them is lacking. And that's what I'm trying to find is what are those, and how are you going to bring that if you're one of the most powerful member of the council?
That would fall ultimately with the Department of NNVA. That position itself is the one that provides the service.
But do you think that NNVA is doing their due diligence?
No.
Okay, so if you say no, then why are you recommending them?
It's the only program they have on the reservation.
But should you become the Navajo Nation Council delegate, what are you going to do in your role to change that disparity within NNVA?
A lot of things need to be changed within the NNVA, like within our own organization of Northern Agency. We have no confidence in the executive director right now, and we passed a resolution stating that we had no confidence in her. Then we also passed a resolution recently stating that we wanted them to end her contract. There are currently 3 agencies that have no confidence in the executive director. We are not being heard. The president is not hearing us. Council, unfortunately, due to her contract, cannot touch her either. HES committee and the council delegates have a very limited authority when it comes to NNVA. And
Right.
it's just
Those are problems that I think most of us know, even though I'm not a veteran. The question is, what are you going to do as a member? Should you be elected? What are you going to do to resolve those issues?
We need to rebuild NNVA. It needs to be revamped. We need to take all these audits that have happened since the beginning of it. We need to put the qualified people in place to run NNVA, and it not to be solely on favoritism and nepotism. And that director needs to be solely about the veterans.
How would you, as an elected Navajo Nation Council delegate member, how would you ensure that the money goes all the way 100% to all the local chapters or associations, what have you, everywhere on Navajo Nation? Because right now, what I hear is that we got a figure, but by the time we got over here, the chapters, we're just getting pocket change.
Honestly, I think the biggest, because how we get the Veteran Trust Fund money is by veteran count. So that's how it gets dispersed. And this question keeps coming up because maybe what they need to do, or what I would suggest they need to do, is take that lump sum of money and find out, we actually need a veteran count, like an accurate veterans account from DOD, to see exactly how many veterans we have on the Navajo Nation and get that accurate information corrected to where we could do the mass checks, however many, once or twice. Because right now, the way they have it broken down, the way the money just goes, and how some agencies run out versus how some don't, they end up not spending it all and they lose it. So there's a lot of things that need to be worked out concerning the funding, because right now the NNVA will flat out tell you they have the fiduciary responsibility to move money. They can do whatever they want. And as a council delegate, I would right now, just as a veteran, I'm concerned where this money's going and who's not getting it, because every veteran on the Navajo Nation eligible needs to get this money. They're entitled to it.
Okay. Throughout this thing, Hagila did Chitty ASEAN song. Laid Askira, what all a dear hidden now, what on does bad or add and Nahaskai. A call corn Nahaskai, which way call by Nahayotna, but has your bargo. Doya Yadas Kitasa, or what always has. A call today got a Sapa or a Takati yard or veterans, Slinton note that a call a. Penny not in I just kid or little. So I guess I hadn't in the call the chapter done nil to agency done nil. A call the art hot or a night is nillo. Art the tau. Art a height or a deed. The veterans band either late, so I hot or night the kid. Call even in not go. Deed dropped up in Ada so hot or a pendilish. Tora lead a Khalid Obanson case Ada.
We need to work together on every front. Every front. That's the way I see veterans. Just, it's kind of like it's difficult to address the veteran issues because you have some that appreciated going and you have some that were drafted and didn't want to be there. The community itself suffers with PTSD and just all kinds of trauma. So how we all work together, how we come together, how we became part of the government, I'm still trying to, just with everything that I've done and how far I've gone up there, it's not that I would really not want to say we're entitled, but that seems to come up quite often, even outside of the Navajo Nation. It comes up, just being at the state side. It's a sticky subject, but we do have a lot of people that sacrificed a lot, and that it even goes back to surviving spouses and Gold Star parents.
Yeah.
Also,
Let me sure. It's an idea. Judy Nidens on to aid out shit look to a hat islado to a contra the yard and Shakespeare's the corner does bar kitchen con has corrupt in does the Sunday Hana ordered above and sudden so I'd never zad I just hit and to be that a call 18 is Nello. So you see, the night is kitty Joe. There is the currently hard sheet kid and southern has the low AR Banahas. A consago to everything down. Because deep are quite in has so not silly, he has the be on there. Bahas, what osh, Joy Hunstra, what oil night kitty.
having to, it's this is going to be interesting. I got what most of what you stated concerning, like, the wellness of, and how things are difficult, but I didn't piece a lot of what you said together.
Okay. Go ahead.
Because I'm not fluent in Navajo. I can understand to a certain point, but that shouldn't be something that.
Yeah, well, what I'm saying is that some of our veterans, they prefer to speak Navajo, and they have, some of these are, goes all the way back to the code talkers. There's different veterans of various different ages and capabilities in terms of their economic conditions. So you don't think that as a council delegate, as a former veteran, that you would advocate to have facilities located on the Navajo Nation rather than just referring them to VAs, which are predominantly based off the Navajo Nation? That's my question.
Okay. So, all right. We have 2 clinics, one in Kayenta, then there's another one in Chinle. They're like the little they're within the Navajo Nation IHS. Then we have Gallup right there in the neighboring community. Then we have Farmington, Seabach. But as a delegate, I have seen and heard that they have been talking about bringing a VA hospital to the reservation. That would be great. That is a huge, huge, huge plus. The issue is we're so far spread out in, the rural versus, the ruralness is what really affects us. And that's not the fault of the veteran being where they live.
Right,
And
but you would be in a position to make those recommendations, even draft a legislation. That's the type of problem-solving issues that I'm looking for every candidate to be able to give us that formula step by step of how are you going to engage and make that thing happen. We already know the problems.
Okay. So the biggest problem I would see with bringing that to the Navajo Nation is with those 2 clinics that they have in the Navajo Nation. They're not being used, Cal. They have 1,000 appointments. And within just the Chinle clinic and the Kayenta clinic.
So are you saying it's a fault? Are you saying it's a fault of the veterans?
Not necessarily, because I understand the transportation is an issue. Where they live, the ruralness. I mean, if I were to become council delegate, I would truly engage with the fact that we do need one or maybe two centralized VA hospitals in the Navajo Nation. We do need the transportation to bring them there.
Yeah.
We need to have that capability. And the big thing is with the partnership we have with the VA, that's where your certifications come in. That's where they bring in the healthcare, at a veteran's level. So my concern is, we bring these big two hospitals in, are we going to be able to fill them?
Okay. So again, back to the question, who's ultimately responsible for the veterans?
The U.S. government.
Okay.
I would go to DC. I would really go to DC and advocate about how we can get more services brought to the Navajo Nation, specific, not just for veterans. I mean, we need more healthcare. We need more. I mean, the historical trauma needs to be addressed. There's so much that the Navajo Nation has suffered just with every war, with every event that happens. Their mental health needs to be addressed. Everything that's happening with, even just with the environmental tragedies, disasters that keep happening, like the gold mine thing that's still being worked on, the uranium. I mean, we have all these different things that are happening across the Navajo Nation that needs to be addressed, and it's affecting everybody. I mean, the health.
Yeah. So I'm glad you brought up Washington, D.C., and also that you would go to them to advocate on behalf of the veterans. What legislative mechanism, should you be elected to the Navajo Nation Council, what legislative mechanism will you use to force the United States government to bring these facilities on our land?
We have more than enough evidence and like a track, like the history, the records. We have more than enough to show and prove at the Washington level that this is needed.
What's the legislative mechanism you would use?
Got me on that one.
Okay. So I want to thank you for you being a veteran, as well as all the veterans throughout the Navajo Nation. We look up to you. We might not have served because we weren't drafted, and neither did we enlist during peacetime. So, but still, we are grateful for your service. So, just wanted to put that in there. I want to get past, I want to pivot now on to, speaking of healthcare and the VAs. Don't you think it's pretty much a no-brainer if there's healthcare facilities already established on the Navajo Nation, that we know that these veterans go to the hospital there? Wouldn't you think that possibly just bringing the VA facilities in each of the hospitals?
Yeah, which they have two already.
ones in Cayenta, is that an independent office or is that in the clinic?
I believe it's an independent. And the other one is Chinley. It's in the hospital.
Okay, would you advocate that all the VAs are located in the hospital?
That would be yes. I would. It would benefit the entire Navajo Nation if they did more.
Okay. Tell me about 638 in terms of healthcare.
630 in terms of healthcare is, will we eventually be able to run our own facilities and no longer be under the control of the United States government? Do we have that? Because there's, throughout the entire Navajo Nation, majority of all the clinics are 638. And it's just, will we ever be truly be sovereign and able to run all of our own facilities? Because right now the US government runs all of our facilities, majority of them. And I think as a nation, we definitely need to grab the reins and start running our own stuff.
So in other words, I'm hearing that you agree with 638s.
I agree to an extent. It's difficult to say that I agree with it, but this is where I guess I would like to refer back to the history and the numbers to see if we've seen success in this, because that's the last thing that I would want, is to set anything up for failure if we're not capable to do it. So it's understandable that I believe it's a system that was given to us that we're still working with. And honestly, I don't know if we're going to be able to come out of 683.
638.
I mean, sorry, 638.
Yeah. Specifically, I mean, Calnez, even though I'm not from Fort Defiance, and even though I'm not from Winslow, which are those health facility? I mean, I know which one of those are 638s. Which one of those are 638s? Cehoto Medical Center and Winslow.
So
Actually, they both are. There's issues. Should you get elected and you become a member of HESI, and I think a lot of those overlap with healthcare and their responsibility, education, all sort. And so when you look at that, we've got issues that are happening on the Navajo Nation. From your observation, Shiprock Northern Navajo Medical Center is not a 638. Having said that, when you're sitting in Window Rock, and there's a legislation that comes through that says we want all of the 638 or all of our hospitals to turn to 638, what mechanism would you use to study that legislation?
I would probably ask to do I would honestly want to know what the people would want to do. So I'd probably ask for a poll to see how they differ per community. So I think that would probably be the best thing to get statistics, because statistics honestly speak to a lot of the issues that we currently have. I mean, because if you can walk into any situation, you need to know the numbers, just like you were saying. Statistically, we need to understand the demographics of any situation. So that's what I would personally do, is ask the community, ask the hospital itself, if what we should be doing different. That the community, for that matter.
Well, yeah, majority of the 638s were approved by the community. They wanted it. But I think that there's a bigger question. Do you think right now that the 638s is a feasible idea, because these industry healthcare facilities are a multi-million-dollar business? If it comes into the control of the Navajo Nation government or the Navajo people at the local level, do you believe that they're capable of being a self-sustaining, self-reliant facilities?
I would hope they could be, but statistically, it comes back to a lot of what I'm already seeing in the current government now, with the way money's going missing. It's just, that's a fearful reality of, could we? I honestly, I guess in a way I'm I don't know how to answer that one. And personally, I don't think we could do it. Since, we could, I just don't, that's a lot of money. Like you said, multi-million.
So based on what you just said, so do you support 638s?
Mm-mm. Nope.
Okay. There's a lot of money floating around in there. There's a lot of overbilling. There's a lot of rogue decisions being made by these health facilities, like if a nurse or a non-Navajo nurse puts up a complaint on behalf of the Navajo people, whether it's to the board, they get fired. There's also doctors within the 638s. It's national news. They billed, and it happened right on the Navajo Nation, these 638 contracts, where that they are overbilling. And there's so many other situations with the healthcare. Things like when I was a kid, I remember going to boarding school and having this saltine cracker pattern on my shoulders. And I look around all the other kids, never saw another one with a pattern like that. There was obviously some sort of a vaccine. My parents never asked for any type of study, never asked for any type of special, most majority of the people have these little dots for vaccine. I don't have one. Mine were like little pokes all over my shoulder. That's a classic situation of many, 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 many other problems with our healthcare system. The federal government slash maybe the 638s making these decisions and overbilling, firing, no matter what, no matter how much the Navajo people fight, or these nurses and doctors might fight for the Navajo people to get fired. How would you stop that if you were a council delegate?
They need to get rid of 638. They need to get.
But it happens in both 638s and hospital. The Navajo Nation government has representative in, that. Yeah. How would you, as a legislative branch member, how would you address those problems, whether it's 638 or IHS?
It needs to be looked into, and I know I always wondered how a lot of the overall issues at Winter Rock, get addressed. And it's personally 638s and IHS and what's happening at the healthcare level it's not right, and we need to take a look at it and possibly make the changes that we need to make it a better system for our people. And if it means, it's so hard because there's so many issues across Navajo Nation. And if you were to take one issue, and try to go after it and fix it completely, how long is that going to take? And I can sit here and say that I want to hold both of them accountable. I want to, fix IHS and fix 638, but that in itself it's huge. It's
right. Basically what I'm getting at, I guess, is that, trying to give you that opportunity to have you navigate through. Wouldn't you think that there should be an oversight specifically dedicated to all of the healthcare facilities on the Navajo Nation?
Yes, it should be. Oversight should be on several different fronts.
Do you agree that HESI is the oversight committee?
HESI is the oversight committee. They are, but if you've been watching HES lately, they sometimes show up when they're on the agenda. They sometimes don't. So that falls back to the executive branch of them not holding their position responsibilities. So it's difficult to get everybody at the table, that the way that I see our government, the way it works.
Yeah.
It's
but here's the problem again. You have HESI committee. Right now, I believe that all the committee members, only one of them has a doctor title.
Mm-hmm.
And that's Dr. Andy Nez, but he's not a medical doctor. So we're back to square one. Well, what would you do?
I see where you're going with this. We need people with the right qualifications in these oversight committees. And if that's that's going to fall back towards even the delegates. I mean, maybe delegates need to have certain qualifications. Like you said, we need a doctor sitting on HES to give us the understanding. Maybe we need, an engineer in specific parts, the people that actually have the qualifications to speak and the knowledge and experience. And I'm in agreement with that. We need the qualified people, just like we could go back to the NNVA director. That person needs to be highly qualified.
Yeah.
I agree. We need the right people sitting at these positions with the experience and the knowledge, the know-how. We need it.
Yeah. Well, on that same thought, majority of the council delegates that are running, I doubt maybe one or two might have some sort of a medical degree, and that we're back to square one with that one. So wouldn't it be ideal just to come up with a independent health board, maybe from the Division of Health? And I mean, I'm just a person just like you out here in the street looking at this. So I'm sitting here brainstorming right
Hmm.
along with
I
you.
agree. Yeah, it's yeah,
So, and then once we're there, and they're uh, they're comprised of medical doctors who know the medical system, some administrators that can do the overview, and not only that, wouldn't it be ideal to have a Surgeon General of the Navajo Nation?
that would be ideal. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. The next thing is, would you support a nationwide health coverage for all Navajos wherever they are? Because the truth is this, is that we, the Navajo people, whether we live on the Navajo Nation or not, we are Navajo. We don't quit being Navajo once we cross the border of the Navajo Nation. So why is it that the people who choose to live off the reservation should be penalized for living off the Navajo Nation, and they don't get health care? They have to go out there and they get bills up into the thousands of dollars to healthcare. Some of them don't have, they can't afford insurance out there. So that's a huge problem. How would you resolve that issue?
I would be in agreement with what you just stated, that our our healthcare insurance, or the ability to have care for Navajos, whether they're on the reservation or off, it it should be available to them. And then of course they're going to come back and tell us that, they have the ability to go, like they have the clinic in Albuquerque, but then we have Navajos all the way out in, different states, and they don't have an IHS nearby, but that's the one thing they're going to throw back at us. Then they're also going to tell us that you do that. What is it? The 72-hour you call into IHS for the contract health, and then that's how they cover it. But that always doesn't work. So they don't cover
Exactly.
some things.
Well,
So
see, that's a problem. If you add up it's just one patient. If you add up a referral off reservation, the money that IHS spends for a referral service collectively for every referral across the Navajo Nation, and then you have facilities like I'm not against these off-site because that's all we have now, these urban health centers. But rather than creating these off-res health facilities, wouldn't it be cheaper to just offer overall
coverage.
worldwide coverage?
Yes.
That way, the Navajo Nation or any tribe doesn't have to spend money off the reservation by buying a building, buying these facilities, and hiring doctors over there. And it's just a long range oversight again. Do you agree with that?
I agree with that. Yes. It would make everything simpler.
Okay. Speaking
And
of this, it covers two-part. The current situation with the Navajo Nation government and the current overbilling that's happening on the Navajo Nation healthcare system. As we pivot into small business and economic development, when we talk about money, you're going to be sitting there should you be elected as a Navajo Nation council. There's going to be many budgets coming through in front of you. Big money. We're not talking about $5 here and there. We're talking about millions, hundreds of thousands of dollars being expended. Which brings me back to one question, because you were over at executive branch, so you should have some insight on this. There's a missing $24 million if you were a council delegate right now, what would you do to resolve that situation?
If I had all the power in the world, man, I've questioned that 24 million. And being at the executive branch, when we were asked questions about that, we were told that it's still there. That's what we were told. And it didn't go anywhere. But with everything coming out, clearly a check was cashed here and there. So it's coming out. Where exactly is the 24 million? I would, if I were a delegate right now with all the power, I would honestly request an investigation, specifically for that 24 million, and an audit. They need to find it. They need to know exactly where it is, and regardless of what happened to it, the Navajo Nation people need an accurate, truthful answer. And if I had all the power in the world, I would just really ask for an investigation and audit on where that money went, regardless of who was at fault. Just we need to know where that money went. And going forward, the Navajo Nation people need that kind of transparency of the funding that the entire Navajo Nation does receive. Because like you said, there's a lot of money.
Yeah.
But that's what I would ask for is, we need a special, just like what's happening, I guess, right now with the special prosecutor. I mean, and that's where I'm seeing the difficulties of holding people accountable. The people that do attempt, there's so many obstacles and avenues just to get the right answer. Why is it so difficult to hold people accountable, to ask the question of your leaders and not get a straight answer? Why does everybody hang out in the gray? Why can't you just give us the truth? That's what frustrates me about our government, is too many. I mean, you could go before somebody and say something and it not even be accurate. So I would want to know, who is responsible for moving that money. And I would want names. And I mean, this has happened so many times in previous leadership, previous presidents, and they've gone to prison. I mean, it's no different now. I mean, I just think serve justice where it's due, and they need to, we need answers for that 24 million. There's no excuse. There's no.
Yeah. Well, pretty much everything that you've repeated so far is exactly what's going on. So what I'm looking for is in you as a council delegate, what mechanism would you use to ensure that type of situation never happens again?
There needs to be somebody higher than OOC right now. Like you said, honestly, in every department of our government that concerns money, that can be misused, that can be misplaced, we need oversight. We need somebody, everything needs to be looked after. And then when it comes to this, we need somebody better than Sean McCabe. I know Sean McCabe is torn every which way, and he's just, he's office of the controller. He's the controller, and he can only explain so much. We need, like you said, an independent oversight that oversees behind the scenes the money of the Navajo Nation. And that, needs to fall within the laws and hold people accountable.
Remember, we're now into small business and economic development. Again, whether it's coming from the Resources and Development Standing Committee, or it could be coming from any part of the Navajo Nation, any contracts, any initiative for money to be put aside for any project involving money. So we're talking about that as
that would, like, our contracts within the Navajo Nation should truly stay only with, like, Navajo businesses. The contract should all be Navajo. We shouldn't have these outside entities, because we have so many businesses well within the Navajo Nation that could handle a lot of these projects across Navajo Nation. I mean, like right now we have so many different contractors that are, non-native, that are huge. And are they overcharging us? Probably. So
yeah, like overcharging.
We do need someone to monitor
a lot of time
the contracts that are happening across Navajo Nation, as well as who's doing the work.
Yeah.
But for Navajo Nation to truly be sovereign, we need to stay within our own, with our own people.
Yeah. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Yeah. Something happened.
Okay. My volume went off. Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. My volume went off.
Okay. These monies that we're talking about, they're going to be coming in all different forms, different sizes, different amounts. And as you're making decisions on these contracts, again, it's going to go back to that one question again. What are the logics that you're going to use to justify these expenditures? What metric would you use to do so?
No, what metrics to... I feel like I'm getting stumped in all this. I would want us to keep it within the Navajo Nation, and we need a really good, I guess, in a sense, verifying, interviewing process of who's doing work on the Navajo Nation and where our money is going. So to me, I just think I'm kind of stumped when you said metrics. I'm like, logically thinking the metric, like what would I use? How would I do it? That's where I'm getting kind of, I guess I'm stumping myself on that.
Okay. I guess I'll just give you the answer here. Are you familiar with Navajo Business Opportunity Act?
Yes, that's with the priority 1 and priority 2. Priority 1 is all native owned contractors. So it's like all Navajo. The company is all Navajo. The second priority has to be a percentage of, so say your founder could be Navajo and the partner could be non-Navajo. With that being said, it's Um, it becomes an issue when, I mean, across for majority of the contracts, I'm just going to say it throughout Navajo Nation, it's priority 2. It's majority non-native. And to keep it within the Navajo Nation, as a delegate, I would eliminate priority 2. So priority 1 would only be the contracts that we accept on the Navajo Nation. So our money stays with the Navajo people. And the business remains within the Navajo Nation.
So there is currently this particular law, and it outlines specifically the step-by-step of how every department within the Navajo Nation, every aspect of procurement, every procurement has a step-by-step formula. In there, it's written whose responsibility from every department for every contract. So it's very advisable to all candidates that they should read this. And basically, it's Navajo first, yeah, of course, but there is step by step. Had those been followed for every contract, I wonder where the purchasing department was when the bids were open for Zinni Home. I wonder where business regulatory was when the contracts were opened for the Zinni Home, because they're supposed to vet all of those before. And then there's a process that interlaces with 164. And eventually that contract makes it to the desk of the president, either for sole sourcing or contracts. Sole sources doesn't necessarily all have to go to the president's office, but the contracts are there. So there is a review. So even I'm not an elected official, I'm just a layman on the Navajo Nation. I know that. So for all candidates, you guys should know that right off the bat. So it's a very, very complex situation. In your opinion, what do we mean by economic development?
What do you say that again? I didn't catch the first part.
According to you, who is a candidate for the Navajo Nation Council, what is economic development to you?
Economic development to me is creating businesses, creating jobs, creating resources for the everyday life for every Navajo on the Navajo Nation, whether it be grocery stores, whether it be gas stations, whether it be places where community can meet, senior citizens centers, boys and girl clubs for the kids. Economic development to me means those type of facilities available for Navajo Nation members.
Who is ultimately responsible for economic development within the Navajo Nation government?
Ultimately, I don't think it's one person. I think it's all 3 branches. I think that's what I think it's. I mean, you don't see it happening, but that's what it should be. They should all be They should all be working together to make this possible for the Navajo Nation people.
Well, I think it's pretty obvious. There's two entities. One is Resources Development Committee, which is a standing committee within the Navajo Nation Legislative Branch. And the other one is under the executive branch, and that's actually called the Division of Economic Development. Those are two that were responsible for that. So right now, as a business owner that has worked with the Navajo Nation government, we have a lot of gatekeepers in the Division of Economic Development. Majority of those people that work there have no experience in self-employment or entrepreneurship, but they're enforcing procurement, they're enforcing business registration, but they have no concept what the entrepreneurs, the Navajo business owners encounter to even get registered. There's a big hurdle. So I'm telling you this because it's a problem, because right now there's only 1,963 registered Navajo businesses. That's tragedy. That is ultimate failure of every elected officials across the Navajo Nation. So when you're going into this seat, how would you plan to dismantle the gatekeeper culture in the Navajo Nation Division of Economic Development that's there right now, that presents our own people, our own entrepreneurs, from getting their businesses registered, and also for these contracts to stay with the Navajo owned businesses?
Within every, like, especially the two that you mentioned, I understand that a lot is not being done in Winter Rock, and the gatekeepers, in all honest, that needs to go away. I mean, we need to look at the entire department and fix the discrepancies that are currently happening. And that's why a lot of people within the Navajo Nation say it's not what you know, it's who you know. And that's not a good phrase to be using for our Navajo Nation government, but being up there, it's true. It's sad but true, and there's a lot to fix within our government. I agree with that. And imagine, just like you said, if we could get all these entrepreneurs, all these businesses that the Navajos could bring to the Navajo Nation and all get registered, how we could thrive as a tribe, being self-sustaining, being self-sufficient, to being able to run our own nation with our own people. And I would want to definitely fix that, because that's completely unfair for everyone that is an entrepreneur. I mean, there shouldn't be obstacles like that, but they're everywhere. Anything that I look into is obstacles. I mean, being a veteran and getting your veteran trust fund is an obstacle. So it's just everywhere, and it's something that I see within our government that rises a lot of concerns and issues. And I wouldn't want that for anyone that I know, because I want you to prosper. I want you to do great things for our nation. I want to be able to go out and see your artwork in our hospital. Those are the kind of things that I would want. But it really needs to get there's so much to fix. That's the way I see our government right now. And maybe that's what our current delegates have been trying to do. But everything that I see that our current delegates have attempted to fix, attempted to take care of it, just they always ran into legalities. They always ran into laws. They always ran into even themselves. And that's where I came back to the whole, when are they going to work together? And I don't know. It's definitely going to be a lot of, like you said, logical thinking and understanding all the platforms and all the departments and all the issues across Navajo Nation. So I don't think it's fair, and I think it needs to be fixed, and if it needs to change.
Okay. Diga. Could you see that will be the last question. So is there anything in specific that you want to rebut on?
No, no, because I think you were being very blunt across the board, and what you brought to the table is definitely what we as council delegates, candidates need to understand is, we're going to be walking in not knowing, some things. We need to take corrective criticism and understanding, and learn to be better at what you're asking of us, not just you, but the Navajo people. So I don't think I have to rebut anything, because we're always here to learn, and changes within the person. So I'm going to still be learning even when I get up there. And even with the delegates that are in their third term or fourth term, I mean, they don't know everything. Times are changing. So even though they've been there and they have the experience, there's those of us that want to take an opportunity to be a delegate. And a lot of people say, you can hear the current delegates now. They say when you want to say something negative to them, then they immediately turn around and say, well, why don't you run for council? If you think you can do better, step up. And I think I have a shot. I think, my integrity is spot on, and, it's a learning process for all of it.
Okay. Thank you very, very much. And for all those listeners that are online, thank you for being with us. You're listening to Politics on the Navajo Nation podcast series for the Navajo Nation presidential and council delegate candidates. And I'm interviewing them. There are certain sets of questions that I've used for all of them. So I'm not just singling out one person with specific questions, because they are all answering these questions and worded in a different way, in different arrangements. But the questions are all still there. So please understand that. Ako, I will give you the last word. Your closing comment to your constituents in Shiprock and to the Navajo Nation. Why do you want to become the Navajo Nation Council delegate from Shiprock?
To my Shiprock community, I am asking for your vote, because within the last 3 years, I have been to majority of the chapter meetings. For those of you who haven't gone to the chapter meetings, that's where the magic happens, and you get to see what's happening within Shiprock. I encourage everybody to go to their chapter meetings, and my goal as delegate would be to really work with Shiprock, and I believe that's where my council delegate begins, is within my community. My community needs to have faith in me, needs to, promote me, needs to have consideration that, or understanding that I will do what I can do in the best interest of Shiprock. And that's pretty much all I want to do as delegate, is to get Shiprock back on its feet to what it used to be, to, help the community. And I'm asking for your vote because so far, with just what I've done so far in the veteran community, I've done so much already. And I can extend that to more. And that's why I'm asking for your vote. I will continue to be learning. I will always be authentic, and I will always do what's in the best interest of the people. Thank you for having me, Cal.
All right. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. So, how do people stay in contact with your campaign?
Through Facebook. I have my page. Then I can give out my number, which is 970-560-3156. And I also have an email. It's simmsforcouncil@gmail.com. And if you look on my page, on my one flyer, and it has my email down there, and I look at it periodically. So any questions or concerns that people have, they can text me, call me. I get that enough from the veterans. But ultimately, I want a chance to represent them at the highest level. And, it would be an honor. But I'm not here to say that I'm going to be the best at it, because we're continually learning. But if anybody knows me out there, for my veterans, they know that I will fight. So,
okay.
But I thank you for this time. I appreciate you, Cal. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you for joining us. And I'll be back in about 17 minutes. And our next interview is going to be the incumbent, Titus Nez. He's a council delegate. So come back and join us, and we'll continue with the same sets of questions. So thank you again, DEMETRIA SIMMS, who is running for the Nomination Council delegate seat in Shiprock. And wish you luck, and thank you for joining us this evening. Okay.
Take care.